The Crimson Lotus Conspiracy, a 3-hour epic tale. Close your eyes and let the mists of time carry you back to the year 1185, to the twilight of the Heian period, when the old aristocratic order crumbles like autumn leaves, while the rising power of the warrior class reshapes Japan's destiny. This is the story of 7 souls whose lives will interweave through one fateful winter. When the Genpei War reaches its climax and the foundations of a new age are laid in blood and honor. Welcome to the world of the Crimson Lotus Conspiracy. You are Minamoto no Yoshitsune, and the mountain mist clings to your shoulders like the ghosts of fallen comrades as you make your way down the treacherous path from Mount Yoshino, where the cherry blossoms sleep beneath winter snow, and the ancient temples hold secrets that could topple empires. Your breath forms white clouds in the frigid air that carries the scent of pine and cedar from forests untouched by human ambition, while your footsteps crunch through frost-covered leaves that carpet the earth in shades of bronze and gold. 3 months have passed since the catastrophic defeat at Danura, where the Taira clan made their final stand against your brother Yoritomo's relentless advance toward total victory. The memory of that apocalyptic battle haunts your dreams. The crash of waves against war vessels locked in mortal combat. The screams of dying men mingling with the cries of seabirds. The sight of the child emperor Antoku disappearing beneath dark waters, along with the sacred regalia that legitimized imperial rule for 1,000 years. Your exile began not with military defeat, but with political betrayal, when your own brother declared you an enemy of the state for crimes that existed only in his paranoid imagination. The accusations still burn in your memory, like brands pressed into living flesh. Conspiracy against the new shogunate. Unauthorized communication with court nobles. Ambitions that threatened the stability of the warrior government that Yoritomo was struggling to establish. The irony tastes bitter as winter wind. Your victories on a dozen battlefields had secured his rise to power. Yet your success became the very reason he could no longer trust you to live with the small band of retainers who chose exile over abandoning. Their oath to serve you represents the cream of Japan's warrior class men whose loyalty transcends political expedience, while their martial skills could turn the tide of any battle if properly employed. Sato Tadanobu, whose mastery of archery has never been equaled in 3 generations of constant warfare, maintains watch over the mountain passes with eyes that can spot an approaching enemy at impossible distances. Izisaburo Yoshimori, whose voice can command 10,000 men, or gentle a frightened horse with equal effectiveness, handles the complex negotiations with mountain monks and village headmen, whose cooperation enables your survival in terrain that would defeat conventional military forces. Your morning routine begins before the temple bells of distant monasteries announce the hour of the rabbit, when the world exists in that liminal space between night and day where spirits are said to walk freely among the living. The practice forms flow like water through familiar channels as your naginata cuts precise arcs through air so cold it burns your lungs. Each movement a prayer to the war god Hachiman, and a promise to the spirits of your fallen men that their sacrifice will not be forgotten until justice has been served and honor restored. The intelligence that arrives through hidden channels speaks of corruption spreading through the new government like poison through clear water, while a mysterious organization calling itself the Crimson Lotus Society systematically embezzles funds meant for coastal defense, eliminates honest officials who threaten their operations, and builds a criminal empire that could destroy Japan from within. The information comes from sources whose reliability you cannot question. Musashibo Benkei has returned from the capital with evidence that chills your warrior's blood, while coded messages from surviving allies paint pictures of systematic betrayal that makes your brother's persecution seem like mere family dispute, compared to the existential threat facing Japan itself. Meanwhile, you are also Fujiwara no Tokuko, and the winter moon casts silver patterns through the wooden lattice of your chambers in the Kyoto mansion that has housed your family for 8 generations. Its light illuminating scrolls of classical poetry, by whose elegant calligraphy masks coded messages that could topple governments if their true meaning were understood by hostile eyes. The silk sleeve of your 12-layered court robe brushes against the writing table as you carefully prepare the ink that will carry tonight's intelligence to agents whose identities remain hidden even from you. While the subtle fragrance of plum blossoms from the garden mingles with the warm scent of charcoal from the brazier that provides barely adequate warmth against the season's bitter cold, your position as one of the few remaining court ladies who survived the Taira clan's catastrophic fall from power provides perfect camouflage for activities that would result in immediate execution if discovered by the military authorities, who have replaced aristocratic government with the harsh efficiency of warrior administration. The complex etiquette that governs court life creates numerous opportunities for passing information through seemingly innocent exchanges of poetry and seasonal gifts, while your knowledge of classical literature enables the creation of coded pure communications that appear to be nothing more than refined cultural exercises to anyone lacking the proper keys for interpretation. The intelligence network that you coordinate extends throughout Japan like the roots of an ancient tree, connecting court nobles who maintained their positions through careful political maneuvering, displaced aristocrats who hunger for restoration of the old order, Buddhist monks whose monastery walls conceal more than religious activities, and even certain military officers whose loyalty to the new regime remains questionable despite their public declarations of support for Minamoto. Rule. Your investigation has revealed disturbing patterns that suggest the Crimson Lotus Society represent more than criminal conspiracy. Their activities appear designed to systematically undermine public confidence in military government while positioning themselves to seize control during the chaos that would inevitably follow governmental collapse. The evidence includes financial records showing embezzlement exceeding 3 million Rai, correspondence with foreign merchants that suggests possible involvement with external enemies, and strategic documents that outline plans for coordinated put uprisings throughout Japan. The commission that transforms your passive observation into active resistance arrives in the form of a message from your cousin, who serves as lady-in-waiting to retired Emperor Genpei. The seemingly routine request for assistance with New Year poetry preparations contains hidden instructions for coordinating with other resistance elements, while the subtle variations in brush pressure reveal the Emperor's personal involvement. In efforts to preserve legitimate governance against criminal usurpation, you are simultaneously Musashibo Benkei, and the wooden beads of your prayer rosary click softly against each other as you walk the frost-covered road toward the capital. Their familiar rhythm marking time like the heartbeat of the Buddha himself, while your massive frame casts long shadows in the pale winter sunlight that struggles through clouds heavy with the promise of snow. The weight of your naginata secured across your broad back, alongside the traveling pack that contains the few possessions required for life as a wandering monk, has become so familiar that you feel unbalanced during the rare moments when weapons, buys, and supplies are set aside for meditation or rest. Your journey began at Unforgettable, the great monastery on Mount High, where warrior monks have defended Buddhism for 3 centuries, while their military prowess earned respect from secular authorities, who might otherwise view religious institutions as obstacles to efficient governance. Bereave the intelligence that you gathered during your month-long residence among the scholarly monks reveals disturbing patterns of corruption that threaten not only the new military government, but also the religious institutions that provide spiritual foundation for Japanese civilization. The reports from temple administrators throughout central Japan describe systematic extortion by officials claiming to investigate compliance with new regulations regarding monastic land holdings, while their demands for voluntary contributions to support military operations create financial burdens that threaten the survival of religious communities that have served their local populations for centuries. The pattern suggests coordination that extends far beyond individual misconduct to encompass organized criminal activity that exploits the confusion and uncertainty that characterize any major political transition. Your background as both scholar and warrior provides neat advantages for understanding the full implications of these developments. Your theological training enables analysis of how corruption within government affects the moral foundation of society, while your military experience provides clear sight into the resources and organization required for criminal operations on the scale that current intelligence suggests. The combination of intellectual rigor and practical knowledge creates perspective that proves invaluable for strategic planning, while your imposing physical presence opens doors that remain closed to conventional diplomatic approaches. The morning prayers that begin each day of travel take place at roadside shrines where common people seek blessings for safe journeys, successful harvests, and protection from the bandits whose numbers have increased dramatically since the end of active warfare displaced thousands of professional soldiers without providing alternative employment. Bid, your deep voice chanting Buddhist sutras attracts fellow travelers who find comfort in shared religious observance, while the conversations that develop during these informal gatherings provide intelligence about local conditions that official reports rarely contain. The evidence that you carry hidden among religious texts reveals the society's infiltration of monastery networks throughout Japan. Their recruitment of corrupt monks whose religious credentials provide perfect cover for criminal activities, and their systematic theft of temple treasures that fund expanded operations while weakening Buddhism's ability to provide moral guidance during times of social upheaval. The documents include correspondence that shows coordination between criminal elements and certain government officials, whose positions enable protection from prosecution, while creating opportunities for larger-scale operations. You are also Taira no Tokiko, now calling yourself Yukiko, to avoid persecution. And the morning light filtering through the paper screens of your modest dwelling in Kyoto's merchant quarter illuminates silk fabrics whose subtle beauty conceals your true heritage as daughter of the greatest military family in Japanese history, now reduced to concealing your identity while working as a textile trader to survive in a world that regards your very existence as a threat to political stability. Your fingers, trained from childhood in the elegant arts that marked aristocratic breeding, now manipulate threads and dyes with the practical skill that enables economic independence, while your mind constantly calculates the risks and opportunities that each day presents to someone living under a false identity. The memories of your family's golden age seem distant as dreams. When you remember the Rokuhara mansion, where your father, Taira no Kimori, held court while his political influence rivaled that of emperors, and his military power dominated Japan from the inland sea to the northern provinces. The transformation from pampered aristocrat to working merchant happened with devastating swiftness within months of the clan's final defeat. You found yourself fleeing through winter mountains with nothing but the clothes on your back, the few pieces of jewelry that could be traded for food and shelter. The years that followed that catastrophic fall taught lessons about survival that no amount of classical education could have provided, while the necessity of earning your living through honest trade created appreciation for the skill and dedication required by people whose labor creates the goods and services that make civilized life possible. Your current position as a respected member of Kyoto's merchant community represents genuine achievement that transcends the accident of noble birth. While the knowledge that you possess about court politics and military strategy creates opportunities for serving causes larger than mere personal survival, your secret correspondence with surviving members of the Taira clan creates a network of mutual support and shared intelligence that enables coordinated resistance to the systematic persecution directed against anyone associated with the former ruling family. The letters that you exchange employ commercial terminology and trade, references, that conceal discussions about political developments and opportunities for influencing current events, while the goods that you ship to various destinations throughout Japan carry hidden messages that maintain communication between scattered survivors, who might otherwise remain isolated and vulnerable. The investigation that your commercial activities enable has revealed the society's financial network spans Japan's major trading centers. Their manipulation of commodity prices that enables massive profit from artificial scarcity, and their corruption of merchant associations that should protect honest traders from criminal exploitation. The evidence suggests systematic coordination between criminal elements and certain wealthy merchants whose cooperation provides both funding and commercial infrastructure for operations that threaten Japan's economic stability. The commission that will transform your carefully constructed new life into dangerous political involvement arrives disguised as a routine order for ceremonial garments from a wealthy merchant family preparing for their daughter's wedding to a military officer, whose connections to the new government promise social advancement that peacetime prosperity has made possible. The specifications seem straightforward, until careful analysis reveals that the requested decorative patterns contain symbolic elements whose combination creates a coded message about planned resistance activities. Meanwhile, in the shadows of governmental power, you are Kajiwara no Kagetoki, and the responsibility that weighs upon your shoulders extends far beyond personal loyalty to encompass the future of Japan itself. Because the collapse of military government would inevitably lead to renewed civil warfare that could destroy the peace and prosperity that ordinary people have begun to enjoy after decades of constant conflict. Your position as Chief Intelligence Officer for Shogun Minamoto no Yoritomo requires constant vigilance against threats that emerge from every direction. Court nobles who dream of restoring aristocratic rule, displaced Taira survivors seeking revenge, ambitious military commanders whose loyalty depends on continued success, and now the mysterious criminal organization whose activities threaten to undermine public confidence in the new order. Your intelligence network extends throughout the archipelago like a spider's web, connecting informants in every major city and province, while your analysis of their reports provides strategic assessment of threats and opportunities that enable proactive responses to dangers before they reach crisis proportions. The morning briefing from your senior agents reveals disturbing developments that suggest coordination between several previously separate threats to government stability. The reports indicate increased activity among former Taira supporters. In Kyoto, unusual movement of displaced samurai in the mountain provinces. Suspicious financial transactions involving certain government officials. Banned, a pattern of violent incidents that appear random, but may serve strategic purposes for enemies whose identities remain hidden. Despite months of investigation, your background as a warrior who survived the Genpei War's bloodiest battles provides practical understanding of military strategy and human psychology that proves invaluable for intelligence work. While your years of service to Yoritomo have created intimate knowledge of the personalities and motivations that drive political behavior within the highest levels of government, The combination of battlefield experience and administrative expertise enables assessment of threats that purely military or civilian perspectives might miss through lack of comprehensive understanding. The crisis that threatens to overwhelm your carefully constructed intelligence apparatus begins with the discovery of systematic embezzlement within the Coastal Defense Administration. But investigation reveals connections that extend far beyond simple corruption to encompass what appears to be coordinated attack on government credibility and effectiveness. The pattern suggests enemy action designed to weaken public confidence, while creating opportunities for more direct challenges to military authority. The evidence that your agents accumulate points toward a conspiracy that combines former aristocrats seeking political restoration with criminal organizations, pursuing financial profit, and displaced military officers whose ambitions have been frustrated by the peace that ended their opportunities for advancement through warfare. The coordination required for their apparent cooperation indicates leadership and resources that could pose existential threat to the Kamakura government if their activities are not disrupted through decisive action. You also exist as Nojiru Naozani, and the wind through the mountain pines carries the scent of snow and freedom as you survey the hidden valley, where your band of displaced warriors has created a sanctuary from the harsh justice of the new military government that treats former enemies as permanent threats to social stability, rather than honorable opponents worthy of mercy and possible redemption. The campfire smoke rises straight into the clear winter air, carrying with it the hopes and fears of men, whose loyalty to fallen lords cost them everything, except their lives and the unshakable conviction that honor matters more than material prosperity or political success. Your transformation from respected samurai serving the Taira clan to outlaw leader began not with any conscious decision to embrace criminal life, but through the inexorable logic of circumstances that left no alternative. Decept, death, or dishonor for warriors whose military skills had no place in the peaceful administration that followed the Genpei War's conclusion. The months that followed your lord's death in battle taught lessons about survival that no amount of classical education or martial training could have provided. While the necessity of feeding and protecting men whose only crime was loyalty to their oath created moral complications that conventional ethics had never anticipated. The code of honor that guides your leadership of this desperate community represents adaptation of Bushido principles to circumstances that the ancient texts had never envisioned, because the men who follow you are not criminals by choice, but warriors, whose commitment to duty transcended political expedience when surrender might have saved their lives at the cost of their souls. The raids that provide material support for your hidden community target only those whose wealth comes from collaboration with the oppressive policies that created your exile, while genuine merchants and honest farmers receive protection rather than predation from your mounted patrols. The intelligence network that enables survival in hostile territory includes sympathetic farmers who provide information about government activities in exchange for protection from bandits and corrupt officials. Buddhist monks whose religious duties create opportunities for communication between isolated resistance groups, and even certain merchants whose business interests benefit from the disruption of trade routes controlled by competitors who cooperate with government monopolies. The mission that transforms your band from defensive survivors to active participants in larger resistance efforts begins with contact from agents representing interests whose goals align with your own, despite significant differences in methods and ultimate objectives. The proposition that they present involves cooperation in operations designed to expose and disrupt the systematic corruption that threatens the legitimacy of military government, while creating opportunities for political changes that could benefit all opponents of current policies. The evidence that the agents present suggests that the Crimson Lotus Society represents threat to the stability of Japan itself. While their criminal activities create opportunities for legitimate resistance forces to gain popular support by protecting ordinary people from exploitation and violence that government authorities seem unable or unwilling to prevent. Finally, you are Lady Hotoke, and the silk screens of your chamber in Kyoto's most exclusive pleasure quarter filter the morning light into patterns that dance across scrolls of poetry, whose elegant calligraphy conceals intelligence, reports that could topple governments if their coded contents were deciphered by hostile eyes. The shamisen that rests beside your sleeping platform has provided cover for countless clandestine meetings, its melancholy notes masking conversations that coordinate resistance activities throughout the former capital, while your reputation as the most accomplished courtesan in the floating world creates perfect camouflage for operations that require access to the most powerful men in Japan. Your position at the apex of Kyoto's entertainment hierarchy provides opportunities for intelligence gathering that conventional spies could never achieve, because the intimate relationships that form the foundation of your profession create emotional bonds that cause even the most cautious men to reveal secrets that alcohol alone could never extract. The clients who seek your company include government officials whose decisions affect millions of lives, wealthy merchants whose business interests span the archipelago, former court nobles whose political connections remain valuable despite their reduced circumstances, and military commanders whose battlefield experience makes them dangerous enemies or valuable allies, depending on their ultimate loyalties. The intelligence network that you coordinate operates within the unique social ecosystem of the floating world, where information flows like sake at a festival, while the apparent frivolity of pleasure-seeking creates perfect concealment for activities that serve purposes far removed from simple entertainment. Your fellow courtesans, accomplished in arts that require intelligence and dedication, despite society's dismissive attitudes toward their profession, provide capabilities for intelligence gathering and message transmission that trained agents could never match, while their mobility throughout Japan enables. coordination between resistance cells in distant provinces, the crisis that threatens to expose your clandestine activities begins when one of your regular clients, a senior official in the Coastal Defense Administration, arrives in an obvious state of distress and begins drinking with the desperate intensity of someone seeking escape from unbearable psychological pressure. The fragmentary admissions that you extract during the evening reveal his involvement in embezzlement schemes, whose scope and organization suggest coordination that could threaten the stability of the entire government. The investigation that your curiosity compels you to initiate reveals connections between his corruption and a broader conspiracy involving officials, merchants, and criminal organizations whose ultimate goals appear to include the systematic destruction of public confidence in military government. The evidence that you gather suggests that the Crimson Lotus Society represents coordination between several previously separate threats to create a challenge that could succeed where individual resistance efforts have failed. The winter moon hangs like a silver mirror above Kyoto as 7 paths converge in the shadows of Kiyomizu Temple, where the ancient wooden stage extends into darkness above the valley floor, while cherry trees, stripped bare by winter winds, stand like skeletal, penned sentinels guarding secrets that could reshape Japan's destiny. The meeting that brings together forces of resistance against the Crimson Lotus. Conspiracy represents more than mere coordination between separate efforts. It marks the moment when individual struggles transform into unified action capable of confronting enemies whose resources and organization exceed what any single group could challenge. Yoshitsune emerges from the temple precincts like a ghost made flesh, his movements so silent that even the temple cats fail to notice his passage, while his eyes scan the surrounding darkness with the heightened awareness that years of exile have developed into. Supernatural sensitivity to danger. Dun the Naginata across his back catches moonlight for an instant before disappearing into shadow again, while his breathing creates barely visible clouds in air so cold that each exhalation feels like releasing a fragment of his soul into the winter. Night, Benkei's massive form materializes beside a stone lantern, his presence announced only by the soft click of prayer beads against his belt, while his warrior monk's robes blend with the temple's architectural shadows to create camouflage, more effective than any military uniform. The intelligence reports that he carries from monastery networks throughout central Japan rest inside his traveling pack, alongside Buddhist sutras and medical supplies, their coded contents revealing patterns of corruption that extend far beyond what any individual investigation had uncovered. Lady Hotoke glides across the temple courtyard with the ethereal grace that marks court breeding. Her 12-layered robes creating whispered music as silk brushes against silk, while her fan, decorated with seasonal motifs whose symbolic meanings carry tonight's authentication codes, reflects moonlight in carefully calculated flashes that confirm her identity to watching allies. The poetry scrolls concealed within her sleeves contain intelligence gathered from the imperial court's remaining informants, while her mind catalogues the strategic implications of information that could either save Japan or destroy it, depending on how tonight's alliance develops. Yukiko approaches from the merchant quarter with the practical stride of someone accustomed to navigating Kyoto's narrow streets, while carrying valuable goods that attract both customers and thieves. Her textile trader's appearance conceals weapons and documents that represent months of dangerous investigation into the Crimson Lotus Society's financial operations, while her knowledge of commercial networks provides understanding of how criminal activities have infiltrated legitimate business to create corruption that threatens Japan's economic foundation. Kogetoki steps from behind the temple's main hall like shadow given substance, his intelligence officer's training evident in the way his eyes continuously scan for threats while his mind processes the subtle details that reveal each participant's emotional state and potential reliability under pressure. The reports from his agent network describe a conspiracy whose scope exceeds what any previous investigation had revealed, while his strategic analysis suggests that tonight's meeting represents either the beginning of effective resistance or the moment when government forces identify and destroy all significant opposition to their authority. Naozane descends from the wooded hills surrounding the temple complex with the fluid movement of a predator returning to familiar territory, his outlaw's instincts alert to any sign of ambush, while his battle-scarred hands rest ready near weapons that have served him through countless desperate encounters. The men who wait in concealment throughout the valley represent the finest warriors that the defeated Taira clan could produce, their loyalty proven through years of shared exile, while their military skills remain sharp enough to turn any betrayal path that would stain these sacred grounds for generations. Lady Hotoke emerges from the darkness with the measured steps of a classical dance, her courtesan's training evident in movements that transform even simple walking into artistic performance, while her intelligence operatives' awareness catalogues every detail of the surrounding environment for future reference. The information that she brings from Kyoto's pleasure quarters reveals corruption at the highest levels of government, while her psychological insights into the personalities involved provide strategic understanding that pure intelligence gathering could never achieve. The circle that forms beneath the temple's ancient eaves brings together capabilities that encompass every aspect of resistance against systematic oppression, military expertise, political intelligence, economic analysis, cultural influence, criminal infiltration, scholarly wisdom, and popular support. The combination represents resources that could challenge any enemy if properly coordinated, while the trust required for such cooperation demands spiritual bonds that transcend the practical calculations governing normal political alliances. The documents that spread across the temple's wooden floor like fallen leaves create a mosaic of evidence that reveals the true scope of the conspiracy, threatening to destroy Japan's hard-won peace and prosperity. Each piece of intelligence contributes essential elements to understanding that transforms scattered suspicions into comprehensive knowledge of criminal enterprise, whose audacity exceeds what any individual investigation could have imagined. While the coordination evident in their activities suggests leadership and resources that represent existential threat to the stability of the Kamakura government. Yukiko's financial records demonstrate systematic embezzlement from government construction projects throughout Japan, with missing funds redirected through merchant networks controlled by society operatives, whose business relationships span the archipelago. The amounts involved exceed the annual revenue of entire provinces, while the methods employed show sophistication that requires intimate knowledge of government, accounting procedures, and bureaucratic oversight mechanisms. The coastal defense funds alone represent over 3 million riyals, she explains, while pointing to columns of figures that document years of systematic theft. But the pattern shows coordination between military procurement officers, construction supervisors, and merchant suppliers that could only function with protection from the highest administrative levels. They're not just stealing money, they're deliberately weakening Japan's ability to defend itself against foreign invasion. Benkei's monastery intelligence reveals complementary evidence of society. Infiltration into religious institutions that serve as communication networks and safe havens for criminal operations throughout Japan. The reports describe systematic intimidation of abbots who refuse cooperation, theft of temple treasures that fund expanded operations, and recruitment of displaced monks whose religious credentials provide perfect cover for activities that law enforcement agencies find impossible to investigate. The corruption extends beyond material theft to encompass spiritual pollution that threatens Buddhism itself. His deep voice carries grief that transcends personal loss to encompass concern for Japan's moral foundation. They've established false monasteries that serve as criminal headquarters, while legitimate religious communities face persecution for refusing to participate in activities that violate every principle of Dharma. Lady Hotoke's court intelligence provides political analysis that reveals the society's ultimate objectives extend beyond criminal profit to encompass systematic destruction of the military government through coordinated attacks on public confidence and administrative effectiveness. The evidence suggests deliberate strategy designed to create conditions for political revolution that would restore imperial authority while eliminating warrior influence over national governance. The timing of various scandals shows careful orchestration, she observes, while arranging poetry scrolls that contain coded analysis of court political dynamics. Each revelation of corruption appears when it will cause maximum damage to government credibility, while the pattern of exposed officials suggests systematic elimination of honest administrators who might otherwise detect and disrupt their operations. Kogitoki's intelligence network has identified key society leaders whose backgrounds reveal the conspiracy's true nature as alliance between displaced Taira loyalists seeking political restoration, corrupt officials pursuing personal enrichment, ambitious merchants wanting to eliminate commercial regulation, and criminal organizations seeking protection from law enforcement. The combination creates capabilities that exceed what any single group could achieve while providing redundant security that makes detection and infiltration extremely difficult. Their leadership council includes Taira no Tomomori, who supposedly died at Danawara, but actually survived and has spent 5 years building this organization. His revelation strikes the assembled group like a physical blow. His military experience provides strategic direction, while his political connections enable recruitment of displaced aristocrats and disaffected military officers whose skills and knowledge make the society far more dangerous than conventional criminal enterprises. Lady Hotoke's intelligence from the pleasure quarters reveals the psychological profiles and personal vulnerabilities of government officials whose corruption enables society operations, while her analysis of their behavior patterns suggests potential approaches for neutralizing their cooperation through targeted pressure that exploits their fears and dependencies. The men involved share common characteristics that make them susceptible to manipulation. She explains with clinical precision that contrasts sharply with her artistic appearance. Financial desperation from maintaining lifestyles beyond their legitimate incomes, sexual appetites that create blackmail opportunities, family obligations that require resources unavailable through honest means, and personal ambitions frustrated by the limitations that proper governance imposes on individual advancement. Nozone's military analysis reveals the society's operational capabilities include trained warriors whose skills rival those of government forces, strategic supply caches positioned to support extended campaigns, and coordination with bandit groups throughout Japan that could provide auxiliary forces for any major confrontation. The intelligence suggests preparation for armed rebellion that could plunge the country back into civil warfare if their political manipulation fails to achieve desired results. Their military resources include over 2,000 veteran soldiers, whose battlefield experience equals our own. He reports with professional assessment that acknowledges both threat and opportunity, but their organization follows conventional military patterns that create vulnerabilities for unconventional attacks, while their dependence on financial resources makes them susceptible to economic warfare that could disrupt their operations. Without requiring direct military confrontation, Yoshitsune's strategic synthesis combines all available intelligence into comprehensive understanding of the society's structure, capabilities, and objectives, while identifying weaknesses that coordinated resistance could exploit to maximum advantage. His analysis reveals opportunities for action that could either destroy the conspiracy completely or provoke responses that would expose their activities to government investigation and popular opposition. Their strength lies in coordination and secrecy, but these advantages become vulnerabilities when their activities are exposed and their communications disrupted. He observes with the clarity that characterizes great military minds. We cannot match their resources through direct confrontation, but we can use their size and complexity against them by creating chaos within their organization, while providing evidence that enables legitimate authorities to act against criminal activities they cannot officially ignore. The plan that emerges from hours of careful analysis and heated debate represents a synthesis of 7 different approaches to resistance, each contributing essential elements, while the whole creates possibilities. Poor success that no individual effort could achieve. For coordination required demands trust that transcends traditional social boundaries, while the risks involved require commitment that accepts death as preferable to the systematic destruction of justice and honor that society victory would represent. The dawn attack on the society's mountain stronghold begins in darkness, so complete that even experienced warriors must rely on touch and hearing to navigate the treacherous paths leading to their objective, while the winter wind carries the scent, bones of snow and pine that mingles with the metallic taste of fear and anticipation that precedes mortal combat. Yoshitsune leads the assault with the fluid grace that made his military reputation during the Genpei War. His naginata cutting precise arcs through air so cold that each breath burns, while his movements demonstrate the perfect balance of aggression and control that separates master warriors from mere fighters. The fortress that crowns the mountain peak represents months of careful construction using defensive principles learned during years of siege warfare. Its wooden walls and stone foundations, designed to withstand assault by forces many times larger than the 40 men who currently approach through darkness. The society guards, whose duty requires vigilance against exactly this type of attack, possess military experience that makes them formidable opponents. Despite the disadvantages imposed by surprise and superior tactical coordination, Benkei's massive form materializes from morning mist like an incarnation of Buddhist wrath. His war club crushing the first sentry's skull before the man can cry warning, while his tactical movement demonstrates integration of religious discipline with martial effectiveness that transforms violence into spiritual practice. The prayers that he whispers while advancing create psychological armor that enables emotional survival of actions that could destroy someone, lacking proper mental preparation. The battle that follows tests every aspect of their military training, while the narrow mountain paths create tactical constraints that prevent deployment of superior numbers while rewarding individual skill and desperate courage. The crash of weapons echoes off surrounding peaks like thunder, while the screams of wounded men mingle with war cries that have remained unchanged since their ancestors first raised steel against enemies who threatened home and honor. The intelligence documents that Yoshitsune's raiders capture during their withdrawal provide evidence of society activities that exceeds their most pessimistic estimates, while revealing connections between criminal operations and government officials whose positions enable systematic protection from official investigation. The financial records alone document embezzlement exceeding 5 million ryo, while correspondence with foreign merchants suggests possible involvement with external enemies whose interests include weakening Japan's military capabilities. The retaliation that follows within days of the mountain assault demonstrates the society's resources and determination, while revealing vulnerabilities that could be exploited by resistance forces prepared for the escalation that their initial success has provoked. For coordinated attacks on resistance supporters throughout Japan show organization and intelligence capabilities that exceed what conventional criminal enterprises possess, while their willingness to risk exposure through large-scale violence suggests desperation that could lead to strategic mistakes. The assassination attempt on Kogatoki occurs during his morning inspection of government facilities, when masked attackers emerge from concealed positions with the professional coordination that marks military training, while their weapons and tactics demonstrate familiarity with official security procedures. Only his intelligence officers' paranoia and warriors' reflexes enables survival of ambush designed to eliminate the government's most effective investigator of their activities. The crisis that brings imperial authority into direct confrontation with the Crimson Lotus conspiracy begins when society agents attempt to assassinate retired Emperor Goshirakawa during his morning prayers at Rengyo in Temple. Their attack creating political emergency that forces the imperial court to choose between continued passive resistance to military government and active cooperation with resistance forces whose methods violate conventional legal procedures. The assault on the cloistered emperor represents escalation that threatens the fundamental legitimacy of Japanese governance, while demonstrating society desperation that suggests their campaign has reached a critical point where victory or complete destruction remain the only possible outcomes. The failure of their assassination attempt create political opportunity for resistance forces, while exposing the conspiracy to official investigation that previous evidence had been insufficient to justify. Goshirakawa's survival depends upon intervention by Yoshitsune, whose presence at the temple during the attack enables martial response that prevents regicide, while creating political debt that could transform the relationship between imperial authority and military resistance. The emperor's recognition of his rescuer, despite official proclamations of exile, creates constitutional crisis that forces resolution of the conflict between brothers whose personal rivalry threatens Japan's political stability. The evidence that the failed assassination provides about society organization includes documents revealing their ultimate objective as restoration of imperial authority through elimination of military government, but under their control, rather than through genuine respect for court traditions and constitutional procedures. Their vision of imperial restoration involves puppet emperors whose ceremonial functions would conceal criminal control of actual governance, while providing legitimacy for systematic exploitation of Japan's resources. Emperor Goshirakawa's declaration of support for resistance activities provides legal framework that transforms rebellion into legitimate action, while creating opportunities for coordination between imperial authority and military effectiveness that the society's division strategy had prevented. The imperial proclamation that officially pardons Yoshitsune, while condemning the Crimson Lotus conspiracy, establishes constitutional foundation for actions that previous legal constraints had prohibited. The society's desperate final strategy involves coordinated uprising designed to destroy both imperial and military authority, while creating chaos that would enable their criminal leadership to seize control during the reconstruction that would inevitably follow social collapse. The plan requires simultaneous attacks on government centers throughout Japan, while foreign allies provide military support that could tip the balance toward criminal victory if resistance forces fail to counter their offensive effectively. The battle for Kyoto begins before dawn, when society forces attempt to seize the imperial palace, while coordinated attacks target government buildings, major temples, and commercial centers, whose destruction would create economic chaos that could precipitate social collapse. The fighting spreads throughout the ancient capital while citizens flee or barricade themselves against violence that threatens to destroy. Centuries of cultural achievement, Yoshitsune's counterattack demonstrates strategic brilliance that transforms apparently desperate defense into systematic destruction of enemy capabilities, while his personal leadership inspires resistance that transcends normal human limitations. His warriors fight with supernatural effectiveness that reflects their commitment to principles that matter more than individual survival, while their tactical coordination creates opportunities for victory despite numerical disadvantage. Warrior monks provide spiritual foundation that enables resistance to criminal corruption, while their military capabilities prove crucial for defending religious sites, whose symbolic value makes them priority targets for society forces seeking to destroy Japanese cultural identity. The sight of Buddhist monks fighting alongside samurai warriors creates powerful imagery that inspires popular resistance throughout Japan. The economic warfare that Yukiko coordinates disrupts society supply lines, while her merchant connections provide intelligence about enemy resources and movement that proves crucial for military planning. Her commercial network transforms from passive intelligence gathering to active resistance that demonstrates how civilian cooperation can contribute decisively to military victory when properly organized and courageously executed. The climactic confrontation between Yoshitsune and Taira no Tomomori takes place on the burning roof of Tofukuji Temple, where their personal duel symbolizes the larger conflict between honor and corruption that has shaped Japan's destiny throughout this long winter of crisis. The battle that follows transcends mere physical combat to encompass spiritual struggle that will determine whether Japanese civilization continues to serve noble ideals or succumbs to the systematic cynicism that criminal success would represent. The spring morning that follows the Crimson Lotus conspiracy's final defeat brings cherry blossoms whose pale pink petals drift across battlefields, still scarred by winter's violence, their beauty creating poignant contrast with the human cost of victory, while their brief flowering reminds all observers that even the most glorious achievements must eventually fade into memory. The silence that has replaced months of constant conflict feels strange to warriors whose lives have been shaped by the rhythm of battle. While the task of rebuilding what criminal ambition destroyed requires skills and wisdom different from those that achieved military victory, Yoshitsune stands among the ruins of the society's headquarters, his Noginata finally at rest while his eyes surveyed destruction that extends far beyond mere physical damage to encompass social wounds that will require years of patient healing. The reconciliation with his brother Yoritomo represents personal victory that transcends political achievement, while his restoration to official position creates opportunities for serving justice through legitimate channels rather than through the desperate expedients that exile had necessitated. The morning sun illuminates documents scattered among the debris, financial records that reveal the full scope of criminal activities, correspondence that exposes foreign connections designed to weaken Japan's independence, and strategic plans that would have plunged the archipelago into civil warfare more devastating than anything the Genpei War had produced. The evidence provides foundation for legal proceedings that will ensure justice while preventing future conspiracies through systematic reform of administrative procedures. Benkei's prayers for the souls of enemies and allies alike rise with temple incense into air cleared of the smoke and fear that had poisoned Japan's spiritual atmosphere. Throughout the long months of hidden warfare, his warrior monk's role in victory demonstrates how spiritual discipline enhances rather than constrains effective action, when proper understanding guides the application of force in service of righteous causes, while his scholarly wisdom provides framework for understanding how individual choices create the larger patterns that determine whether societies flourish or decay. The monastery networks that proved crucial for resistance communications will now serve reconstruction efforts that require coordination between religious communities and secular authorities, whose cooperation enables social healing. The Buddhist principle that all phenomena are interconnected provides philosophical foundation for understanding how criminal activities threaten every aspect of civilized life, while suggesting methods for preventing similar corruption through attention to moral education and community responsibility. Lady Hotoke's return to court creates opportunities for aristocratic influence that serves legitimate governance rather than narrow class interest, while her experience with resistance activities provides practical wisdom about the coordination required between different social groups when facing threats that transcend traditional boundaries. Her poetry celebrating victory emphasizes themes of renewal and reconciliation that help shape popular understanding of recent events, while providing cultural framework for national healing. The political reforms that emerge from crisis enable more effective cooperation between imperial authority and military administration, while preventing the systematic abuse of power that criminal infiltration had exploited. The constitutional changes reflect lessons learned about the vulnerabilities that isolation and mistrust create in governance systems, while establishing procedures for maintaining accountability without destroying the efficiency that military administration provides. Yukiko's commercial network provides foundation for economic recovery that serves honest enterprise, while preventing the systematic exploitation that the society had used to fund their criminal activities. Her textile business becomes model for cooperation between craftsmen and merchants whose mutual support creates prosperity that benefits entire communities, rather than merely enriching individuals willing to exploit others' labor and resources. The trade relationships that she coordinates emphasize fair dealing and quality production, while her merchant connections provide intelligence about economic conditions that enables government policy to respond effectively to changing circumstances. The prosperity that results from these reformed commercial practices demonstrates how honest dealing creates wealth that criminal activities can only redistribute through theft and exploitation. Hotoke's intelligence reforms create systems for detecting corruption while protecting the privacy and freedom that legitimate governance requires. His experience with the conspiracy provides understanding of how criminal organizations exploit governmental procedures, while suggesting methods for maintaining security without creating the oppressive surveillance that destroys the very freedoms that good government exists to protect. The balance between necessary vigilance and excessive suspicion requires wisdom that extends beyond mere professional competence to encompass moral judgment about the proper relationship between security and liberty. In societies that aspire to serve justice rather than merely maintaining order, the procedures that he establishes reflect lessons learned about how systematic evil emerges from the accumulation of small compromises that gradually corrupt entire institutions. Naozani's reintegration into legitimate military service demonstrates how circumstances can transform apparent criminals into valuable defenders of justice when their actions serve purposes larger than personal advancement or material gain. His warrior band receives official recognition, while their outlaw experience provides capabilities for dealing with threats that conventional forces might not detect until too late for effective response. The amnesty that covers their previous illegal activities acknowledges that resistance to systematic oppression sometimes requires methods that normal legal procedures cannot encompass, while establishing principles for distinguishing between justifiable resistance and mere criminal behavior. The precedent creates framework for future situations where individual conscience conflicts with official policy while maintaining respect for legitimate authority and social order. Lady Hotoke's transition from intelligence operative to cultural leader provides opportunities for using artistic influence to promote social healing, while maintaining the psychological insights that proved crucial for understanding enemy vulnerabilities. Her entertainment network becomes a vehicle for cultural expression that celebrates Japanese values, while providing early warning of social problems that could create opportunities for future criminal exploitation. The Pleasure Quarters Reformation emphasizes artistic accomplishment and cultural refinement, while reducing the exploitation that criminal elements had used to extract both money and intelligence from clients whose personal weaknesses made them vulnerable to manipulation. The balance between entertainment and dignity reflects broader social changes that enable prosperity without compromising moral principles. The reconstruction that follows. Victory creates opportunities for building stronger foundations than those that the conspiracy had threatened to destroy, while the lessons learned from crisis provide wisdom for preventing future challenges to legitimate governance and social harmony. The spring that brings new growth to gardens damaged by winter fighting also brings renewed commitment to principles that the conflict had tested, while revealing their enduring importance for human civilization. Emperor Go Shirakawa's role in victory creates opportunities for imperial authority that serves constitutional government rather than merely providing ceremonial legitimacy for military rule. The balance that emerges between court wisdom and warrior effectiveness enables more responsive governance while preventing the isolation that had made systematic corruption possible through lack of adequate oversight and accountability. The reforms establish procedures for coordination between imperial advisors and military administrators, create a governmental system that combines efficiency with wisdom while maintaining respect for traditional values and cultural continuity. The constitutional framework reflects understanding that legitimate authority requires both effective action and moral purpose, while providing methods for resolving conflicts between different sources of governmental power. Yoshitsune's appointment as military commander with responsibility for preventing future corruption creates a position that bridges the gap between noble ideals and practical necessity. While his personal experience with both exile and restoration provides psychological foundation for understanding how individual choices shape social outcome. His leadership demonstrates how genuine authority emerges from character rather than merely from institutional position, while inspiring others to maintain principles despite practical pressures toward compromise. The military reforms that he implements emphasize moral education alongside tactical training, while creating procedures for maintaining discipline without destroying the initiative and creativity that effective leadership requires. The balance between order and flexibility reflects lessons learned about how rigid hierarchies create vulnerabilities that criminal infiltration can exploit, while suggesting methods for maintaining cohesion without sacrificing adaptability. Benkei's scholarly work creates educational programs that integrate Buddhist wisdom with practical governance, while his monastery connections provide communication networks that enable rapid response to emerging social problems before they develop into serious threats. His role demonstrates how religious insights enhance rather than conflict with worldly responsibilities when proper understanding guides their application. The schools that he establishes emphasize moral development alongside intellectual training, while providing education that enables people from all social backgrounds to contribute effectively to community welfare. The curriculum reflects understanding that true wisdom combines theoretical knowledge with practical experience, while emphasizing values that serve common good rather than merely individual advancement. Lady Hotoke's literary work creates cultural expressions that help heal social divisions, while preserving memory of recent events in forms that will provide guidance for future generations facing similar challenges. Her poetry explores themes of loyalty, courage, and sacrifice, while celebrating the human capacity for moral growth through difficult circumstances that test character and reveal true values. The court ceremonies that she helps design incorporate military honors alongside traditional aristocratic rituals, while creating symbolic expressions of the cooperation that enabled victory over forces that threatened Japanese civilization. The artistic synthesis reflects broader social changes that integrate warrior values with cultural refinement, while maintaining respect for beauty and elegance that make life worth defending. Yukiko's commercial enterprises demonstrate how honest business practices create prosperity that benefits entire communities, while providing economic foundation for governmental activities that serve public welfare rather than merely private interest. Her success shows how individual integrity contributes to social health, while suggesting methods for organizing economic activity that serves human needs, rather than exploiting human weaknesses. The merchant associations that she helps organize emphasize mutual support and ethical dealing, while creating frameworks for resolving commercial disputes without resorting to criminal violence or governmental coercion. The procedures that emerge reflect understanding that sustainable prosperity requires trust and cooperation rather than mere competitive advantage, while providing economic security that reduces temptations toward criminal behavior. Hotoke's intelligence work creates systems for maintaining security while protecting the freedom and privacy that legitimate governance exists to preserve. His reforms demonstrate how professional competence serves moral purposes, while suggesting methods for preventing abuse of governmental power without destroying the effectiveness that public security requires. The training programs that he establishes for intelligence officers emphasize ethical responsibility alongside technical competence, while creating procedures for accountability that prevent systematic abuse without hampering necessary operations. The balance reflects lessons learned about how institutional safeguards protect both individual rights and collective security, while maintaining public confidence that enables effective governance. 5 years have passed since the cherry blossoms first bloomed over the ruins of the Crimson Lotus conspiracy, and the seasons continue their eternal cycle, while human institutions adapt to lessons learned through crisis about the price of freedom and the responsibilities that legitimate authority requires. The Japan that emerges from these trials demonstrates enhanced capacity for meeting future challenges while maintaining commitment to principles that the conflict had tested and proven worthy of any sacrifice required for their preservation. The temple at Mount Yoshino, where this story began, has become a pilgrimage destination for those seeking understanding about how individual courage contributes to collective welfare, while the monuments erected their honor both the famous warriors whose names appear in official histories and the unknown heroes whose sacrifices enabled victory over forces that threatened to destroy Japanese civilization. The cherry trees that surround these memorials bloom each spring with flowers, whose brief beauty reminds all visitors that glory fades while duty remains eternal. The evening when our 7 heroes last gather together takes place at the rebuilt Kiyomizu Temple, where cherry blossoms float on the warm spring breeze, like blessings from the gods, while their conversation ranges over memories of struggle and hopes for the future. The bonds forged in crisis have deepened through shared service, while their individual paths demonstrate how different talents contribute to common purposes when united by commitment to principles larger than personal interest. The sake that they share carries toasts to fallen comrades whose sacrifice enabled victory, while their prayers seek wisdom for meeting future challenges that will test whether the lessons learned through crisis create lasting change or merely temporary improvement that fades when immediate dangers pass. The incense smoke that rises from the temple altar carries their hopes for Japan's continued prosperity and their commitment to principles that make civilization possible. The final words spoken that evening return to the eternal themes that give human struggle meaning beyond immediate success or failure, the duty that transcends personal interest, the loyalty that accepts death before dishonor, the love that serves others rather than demanding service, and the hope that future generations will prove worthy of the sacrifices made on their behalf. Like cherry blossoms that bloom and fade according to natural law, while carrying forward the life force that ensures future flowering. These 7 souls demonstrated how individual courage contributes to collective welfare, while their story provides inspiration for all who face the choice between easy compromise and difficult virtue. When circumstances demand moral clarity and decisive action, the dance continues as seasons turn and generations pass, each movement in the eternal choreography of human struggle, creating opportunities for grace and nobility that transform mere survival into meaningful existence worthy of the divine spark that distinguishes humanity from beasts that know only appetite and fear. In their courage, we see reflection of possibilities that await our own choices when fate tests whether we possess wisdom and strength to deserve the freedom that others have purchased with their blood. Thus ends the tale of the Crimson Lotus conspiracy, when 7 souls danced together through one winter's testing to preserve the light that makes civilization possible. Their steps echoing through time to inspire all who face darkness with nothing but principle as shield and courage. Ba's sword in the eternal battle between good and evil that each generation must fight anew. May their memory inspire courage in those who follow, and may the cherry blossoms continue to bloom over a Japan worthy of their sacrifice.